honored if you would join us.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another RugbyIQ analysis. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 1-3-3-1 attacking structure, what teams are looking to accomplish in this structure, and specifically how it's run. Here is a great example. We just have all of the forwards laid out. That 1-3-3-1, each one of those numbers represent a forward or a group of forwards that are together, and how they're spread across the field from left to right. And so from left to right, we have our 1-3-3-1. One forward here, which is typically on the edge or the wing in a 15-meter channel. Then you have a group of 3 forwards here, which we are going to call a pod of 3 forwards here. Then you have another pod of 3 forwards here. And then you have your last one, your 1-3-3-1. You've got your last one on the far side in the far 15-meter channel. So again, that's your 1-3-3-1 from left to right across the field. So what we've got right here, without a ruck, we've just kind of laid out numerically what this 1-3-3-1 can look like on the field. Obviously, we don't have a ruck. We've got our wing forward here. We've got our wing forward on the far side as well. Then you've got your 2 groups of 3. You've got your 1, 2, and your 3 that are together. Then you got your 4, 5, and 8 that are also together with your flankers on the edges. And so these guys here, they're going to make up the 3s, and we're going to talk about the pods first. So this pod system is really important. You have to be able to run effectively the concept of 3 forwards working together. And so let's talk about that first.
I'm a Wario. I'm gonna win.
Awesome. So what we're going to talk about now are 2 major principles that are needed in order to run the 1-3-3-1 at an elite level. So the first concept is the concept of pods, right? And so a lot of teams run this pod system where there's 3 forwards or 3 players that are together. You need to maximize the efficiency of these pods being run, okay? And so what that means is, and we're going to talk about this a lot, what that means is the game inside of the game. And so these players here are pod, right? 1, 2, and 3. They're not worried about the grand scheme of things. They're not worried about everything. They're not worried about what's going on over here or anything like that. All what they're worried about is the 1, 2, 3, 4, however many defenders are in this small little box right here. They're only worried about gaps or things like that are directly in front of them, right here. You want these 3 players to solely worry about what's going on right here. That's our first pod. Our second pod out here, they're not worried about what's going on over here. They're not worried about what's going on wide or anything like that. They are solely worried about what's going on directly in front of them, right? And so that's what's so important, is these pods need to be able to understand and run effectively these lines, these support lines, and just worry about winning the game inside of the game. That's right here, and the game inside of the game, that's right here. So that's the first thing, is being able to run a pod system effectively. The second thing is the concept of a secondary decision maker. So most teams have a primary decision maker in their 10. Most teams have a 10, things run through them, and just that's how the team is run, right? The concept of a secondary decision maker, in this example, our secondary decision maker is our 12. A secondary decision maker is someone that helps the 10 make decisions around the park, really. Really excluding kicking, depending on what your skill sets look like. It's really, when we're talking about running rugby, the 10 is focused on what's going on right here, right? And that's what the 10 is focused on. The 10 is, this is his game inside of the game. It's right here. And if there's, extra things with kicking, that's great. We're not really talking about those right now. But in terms of running rugby, the 10 is worried about what's going on right here. The 12 is worried about what's going on here. The 12 is worried about what's going on with his pod and then everything else wide, right? So the secondary decision maker focuses on, when do we go wide? What's the time where we just exploit? If there's an overlap, allow the 12 to call it, and we're going wide immediately, right? But so what it does is it allows the 10 to hyper-focus on his area, on his game inside of the game, and then it allows the 12, your secondary decision maker, to be hyper-focused and focus on his game inside of the game as well. So let's go ahead and talk more about what running an effective pod system really looks like. So we've got one group of forwards here, we've got another group of forwards here. In this example, we're just worried about our threes. So we're not worried about our edge groups, we're just worried about the center of the field right now. The ball's going to come off of 9, it's going to go straight to number 2. Number 2 is going to have one runner on his inside, one runner on his outside, right? And these guys are just talking to him, all right? Or he's making the call, or maybe the 10 is making the call, right? But we're just worried about what's going on right here. We're just worried about this game, okay? So if numbers 1, 2, and 3, if they can meet and if they can cross the gain line and really beat the 2 or 3 defenders that are in this space right here, if these guys can just beat these defenders, that's a win, right? If they gain 1 meter, if they gain 5 meters because of a small tip pass, that's a win. And so number 1 is having a crash on his inside. Number 3 is having a crash on his outside. And so those are the 3 different options that we have. 2 can either carry or he can send a tip pass. And having all 3 of these options be very live every single time they get the ball is going to cause even more havoc and distress on the defensive line. Now the final option is what we are going to call a bump call, right? And so our bump call is the 2 gets the ball, number 3 kind of runs through, right? And number 10 gets this ball out the back, right? And so this ball goes, this ball goes from 9 to 2, 3 runs through, and then 2 just gives it to 10, coming right out the back, right around the corner. I will say that this is an option less frequently used when the pod is coming off the 9. Most teams, more frequently than not, do like to just have this pod here just crash up. They do reserve, very often, the bump. They reserve the bump for strictly off of the 10. Awesome. So now let's go ahead and we'll take a look at our forward pod off of 10 and what that looks like, right? So the same options are always on. So it's the same lines. So 5 is running an inside line here. 8 is running an outside line. 4 has the option to keep, right? So it's a tip. It's a tip on the inside. It's a tip on the outside, or it's just a keep call. That final option is the bump, and that option is out the back to the secondary playmaker. In this case, the 12, right? And so the person that's making this call is typically the 12. The 12 is he is focused on what's going on right here and out wide. So the 12 again is focused on here and all the way out to the width, right? And so that's his game inside of the game, right? And so if he calls bump, what it looks like, and this is where a lot of teams really make their money, and a lot of teams do just a lot of damage, is he'll call bump. Number 8 will run through, still very much so being a threat. He is still a threat, the number 8, right? So he's running through. He is still a threat. And number 12, keeping his depth, is coming around the corner. Got so many markers here. He's coming around the corner, and this number 4 is going to give him that ball right there, right? And so really what happens is the defenders will frequently, they'll come up pretty hard and they're ready to defend this little space. But number 12, he's been looking where? He's been looking out wide as well. And so the concept is that this is their game inside of the game, and so these defenders are live, but these guys might not be coming up as much. So everyone is focused on these forwards that are difficult to stop. They're crashing up hard on the outside shoulder of the 10, right? But now we have this small little shift pass, or the knuckle pass, out the back, and immediately the 12 comes around the corner, and he's attacking that space right out here, right? And he's able to run hands all the way out wide, catch the defense unaware, and go all the way out wide and attack at the width, right? And so these are our primary options. We've got our keep, we've got our tip on the inside, we've got our tip on the outside, and the most lethal option is the bump, which is the the primary playmaker or the secondary playmaker out the back of the pod and then immediately attacking wide. So this is our basic overview of the 1-3-3-1 attacking structure. If you've got any comments or anything that I can clarify, go ahead and drop them down in the comment section below. As well as if there's a different attacking structure, defensive structure, or counter-attacking structure that you would like me to take a look at and analyze, go ahead and drop that in the section below, and I'll make a video on it.
You know, sometimes I amaze even myself.
Hey, you very good. See you next time.